September 11th, I worked for a company by the name of Cantor Fitzgerald. We occupied the top 5 floors of Tower 1 of the World Trade Center. We employed 960 people. On that day, 658 of my friends and coworkers were brutally murdered simply because they were sitting at their desks. There was no other reason. They never did anything to anybody, they never hurt anybody. They just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. 4 employees were on their way up on the upper floors, and 3 of them were so severely burned that they spent months and months in hospitals undergoing surgeries and rehabilitation, and one of them walked out without a scratch, and you're looking at that person. It was 20 to 7 in the morning. I had my briefcase over my shoulder, I had my cup of coffee in my hands. I yelled up to my wife, "Bye, hun, love you, see ya." I yelled up to my kids, "Bye, kids, have a great day in school." I started to walk out the door. I would get to the Trade Center normally about between 8 and 8:30 in the morning. Well, that morning, my wife yells down to me, she says to me, "Did you do Baruch's book order?" I learned something really important that day. Teachers have a wonderful way of torturing parents. It's called the Scholastic Book Order. Anybody familiar with this? Well, it was 1 week before Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. My wife is a school principal, so besides the fact that she had just opened school, she was busy getting the house ready, cooking, etc. She had no time and no patience for my 8-year-old son. So it was my job. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to do it. And so as I'm walking out the door, she said, "Did you do the book order?" I said, "No, I didn't." She says, "You're not leaving the house until you do the book order." So I put my briefcase down, my cup of coffee down, walked into my kitchen, proceeded to negotiate with my 8-year-old for the next 20 minutes. I whittled him down to 2 books. I felt pretty good. Interestingly enough, the 2 books were from a series called Survivor. And those books came a couple of weeks later. I said, "Boy, does God have a sense of humor or what?" Anyway, after I finished with this, I headed out the door, got to the World Trade Center at 20 minutes to 9. My office is on 101. You couldn't get up to 101 with one elevator. You had to change on the 78th floor to another set of elevators. So I stood downstairs, waited for the first elevator to come, all the way on the right side of the lobby, ran down, got into the elevator, took it up to 78. On 78, the elevator I needed to get to my office was all the way on the left side of the sky lobby. So I hung a left and started walking toward the elevator. I was about 8 feet from that bank of elevators when, as best as I can describe, there was an explosion. I thought a bomb had gone off in the elevator. The entire building shook. The lights went out, the place filled with smoke, and I was literally thrown off my feet. And I will tell you, I am not embarrassed to tell you, I was never so scared in my life. I heard people yelling and screaming, fire in the elevator. I'm sure it was, but that wasn't the cause of what happened. I thought a bomb had gone off. When I gathered myself up, I bumped into a coworker of mine. Her name was Virginia DiChiara. She was on the elevator that I was about to get on when the plane hit. And she described the scene to me. The walls of the elevator collapsed, the ceiling collapsed, a cable in the elevator snapped and was sparking in the elevator. The jet fuel came down the sides of the elevators, ignited by the spark, and there was a wall of fire. The doors had jammed open about a foot, and Virginia jumped through the fire. She suffered 3rd-degree burns. When I saw her, her hair was singed, her clothes were burned. She had 3rd-degree burns up and down her arms. She was a mess. And she looked at me and she said to me, "Ari, please help me, and whatever you do, please don't leave me." And I said, "Virginia, I promise I won't leave you, and we will get out of here." We headed down. We finally found a staircase. I don't have that much time for my story, but we went down 78 flights of stairs. We got out on the first floor. There were police and firefighters there, and they were telling us to go through the mall, through the atrium in order to get out of the building. We got out of the building. I stopped the cop and I said, "Where do we go from here?" He says, "Across the street in front of the Millennium Hotel. There are going to be ambulances and EMT, doctors, nurses, ambulances. Bring her over there. We're setting up a triage center." And that's what I did. And sure enough, an ambulance pulls up, and I help her into the ambulance, and I breathe a sigh of relief, because up until now, the only thing I can do is give her some moral support, but I couldn't help her medically, and now finally she's getting medical attention. I asked the ambulance driver why they aren't taking off to go to the hospital. He said, "We can't leave until we fill the ambulance." They were expecting a huge amount of casualties. Unfortunately, on that day, you were either very, very much alive or very, very much dead, and there wasn't a whole lot in between. So they finally filled the ambulance. They said, we're ready to go. Virginia turns to me and she says to me, Ari, you're coming with us. Now, I don't want to say I was in a comfort zone, but I knew where I was, and the thought of going someplace else didn't excite me. And besides, once she's out and gone, I'm going back to the building because I'm looking for my friends and coworkers, and I'm looking to help. And I turned to her and I said to Virginia, you don't need me anymore. I'm going to get a hold of your mom. She's going to come to the hospital. You're going to be okay. She turned to the ambulance driver. She says, we're not leaving unless he comes with us. I looked at the ambulance driver. He looked at me. I see in his eyes. He's thinking, buddy, this is not cab service. And I'm thinking to myself, I know, but maybe for her own psychological benefit, I should come. And he said, fine, hop into the front. And I got into the front of that ambulance, and we pulled away. We were one of only a few ambulances that actually got away from the scene that day. I have friends who are members of Atsala, the volunteer ambulance club, that showed me pictures of crushed ambulances. Virginia thanks me every single day for saving her life, and I said, you got it all wrong. I said, if she wouldn't have insisted that I get into that ambulance, I would have been standing at the base of that building when it came down, and I would be dead. No doubt in my mind. But because she insisted that I get into that ambulance, I am here today. I got home at about 5:30 that afternoon, and there were 20 people in my living room, and I had no less than 100 phone messages. Learned something important that day. You have no idea how many friends you really have until they all think you're dead. I did learn a lot that day. You know, my family is the most important thing to me. It used to be. My kids used to say to me, Daddy, can you come on the class trip? No, Daddy's got to work. Daddy, can you come to the class play? No, Daddy's got to work. It was always Daddy's got to work. That was always the refrain until that day. Today, Daddy's on the class trips. Daddy's in the school plays. Daddy is wherever his children need him to be, because, my friends, that is what is important in life. We place so much emphasis on work, on money, on so many things. Do you know when we think about our families? When tragedy strikes. That's when we go back to thinking about what's important. We have to train ourselves. It doesn't matter whether it is or isn't tragedy. We need to think to ourselves, what is important in life? And take that with us every single day. Not only when there's a tragedy. Sure, the hurricanes, the rabbi mentioned the hurricanes, the earthquakes. Sure, we're all touched by it. It affects all of us. We all know somebody. Or if we don't, we know somebody who knows somebody. All right? But after that's over, I guarantee you in 2 weeks from now, when all this is over and all this is gone, everybody's going to go back to their way of life and continue doing what they were doing before and totally forget about it. The reason I do these things, and I thank you, Mayor, for inviting me, the reason I do these things is because I never, ever want anybody to forget what happened on 9/11. And as long as I have a breath in my body, I'm going to continue to travel the world and tell people my story and let them know what is important in life. Thanks for listening.